Hello, lovelies. This is 5 Minute Manifesting, and I'm your host, Lovey Brown. Thank you so much for listening. I'm thrilled that you're here. And today I want to talk about practicing your new identity. If you have been, we talked a little bit yesterday about maybe having some labels or some identity words, or really sort of developing some beliefs around some things that you consider negative, or maybe they're not even negative. Maybe they're neutral, but it's just not exactly who you want to be. And you want to be a different version of yourself, a version that has what you want, has manifested what you want. It starts with who you are and who you're being. So let's talk about how sometimes, like yesterday in the podcast yesterday, I used some examples about how maybe some labels were ascribed to you as a kid that make you feel unloved and unworthy, and how you don't have to be that. But maybe you've lived with those labels for so long that you've really come to believe that that is who you are. Then it's time to step away from that. The first step I want you to do is just list out any of those labels that you can think of that you don't want to keep. Or maybe list out all of them and then sort them into piles like keep or don't keep. And the ones you don't want to keep, I want you to really think about who you want to be in that area of life. And then pick a word that describes that trait that you want to have, that you want to manifest in yourself, that you want to develop. And then this is the tricky part. So like this is called practicing your new identity. You've been living with that other label for so long. You've been enacting those things. You've come to believe it. And maybe your 3D reality is demonstrating to you. Maybe your own behavior is demonstrating to you. Demonstrating to you that that is who you are. You are lazy and messy. Or you feel that way. You don't have to believe that, right? Like that's just a belief that you've developed and you've lived into because you heard it or you adopted it or you did one thing and you really sort of went that way, right? So, but you can absolutely change that. Now, it potentially could be a slow start. Now, don't let that make you feel sentenced to definitely being a slow start, but I say that in an encouraging way to say that, like, if you do have a slow start in changing whatever sort of aspect of yourself that you want to change, that you want to practice this new identity, you really are whatever you say you are. You are the person who decides who you are. You are the person who decides what traits you have. You are the person who sort of decides and lives into those actions. Now, that doesn't mean that you should try to shun or get away from any like natural talents you have or any sort of things you've worked to develop in yourself. That's wonderful. I mean, and keep whatever you want to keep. You absolutely should. I'm just trying to say that you're not sentenced to being one way your whole life. You are in control of this. And so when you've got those words and you know who you've decided you want it to be, then in your internal world, in your imagination, in your thoughts, and this will trickle down to your feelings. It won't trickle down right away often, but it starts in your thoughts. So you're in your thoughts and in your imagination, you try on this new identity, the identity of someone who is worthy, the identity of someone who is loved, the identity of someone who is tidy and, fastidious with their things. And you practice in your imagination. That's where it's going to start. It's going to start in your thoughts. It's going to start in your imagination. And then if there's something that you can do in the outside world to bolster that, to sort of demonstrate that to yourself or to other people, you're not trying to prove anything to anybody. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. Let's say, you're working on the feeling of identifying as someone who's worthy and good enough. Because you are. There's nothing to prove. You already are that. But you just don't believe it yet. If you are that in that state. Then think in your imagination, what would it be like to walk into a party or a social gathering or a meeting at work as someone who feels loved and worthy and wonderful? And just practice it in your imagination. And then the next time you go into your next meeting at work or party or social gathering with friends, walk into that group with that in your imagination. Now, you don't have to say anything to anybody. You don't even have to act differently, although sometimes these feelings will create the opportunity for you to make different choices with your behavior and your words and how you act. But just try it on in your imagination, and then try on the character of it in those circumstances. Now, let's use the example of messy and lazy. Let's say you've always believed that, you've believed it for a really long time, and you've just told yourself that story over and over again, but now you've picked neat, tidy, and fastidious with your things as your new label. I mean, that maybe it's going a little far, I don't know, but if that's what you want. So let's say you've picked that, try that in your imagination. Think about your bedroom. Let's do bedroom first. Specifically your bedroom and how it would look if it were neat, exactly how you wanted it, and how it would feel when you would go to bed at night with your bed made and you're making your bed so you can get in. And just think about how that would feel and how you would be the person in that situation making those things happen. So think about that. And so now that's just in your imagination, just in your feelings. And you don't even have to do anything. You don't have to clean your bedroom today. Now, the more you contemplate that, the more you meditate on that image of you in your neat and clean bedroom, you're going to start to want to take action. And those actions could be different for different people. Maybe you just start by moving the laundry into the closet so you can't see it. Maybe you start by hiring a housekeeper. There are different actions you can take, but just try it on in your imagination. So practicing your new identity is trying it on in your imagination and thinking from the perspective of the person who is the thing that you want to be. So it's thinking from the perspective of someone who's walking into, a party or a meeting or whatever as worthy and loved and welcomed. It's thinking from the perspective of someone in their bedroom who is just neat and tidy. So those are just a couple of examples. And it can be any trait in your life. It can be anything. But remember, this is you practicing your identity. And you may be asking yourself what that has to do with manifestation and what that has to do with specific people if you're here for specific person content. And it has a lot to do with it, right? Because who you are as a person is what attracts other people into your life. That's what you're creating. You're creating your life. You are the main character. You are the main character in your life. So let's keep a focus on ourselves for just a minute in this new year. And I promise this does intersect with manifesting a specific person, and it intersects with manifesting everything in your whole life. So with that, I'm going to sign off and thank you so much for listening, and may you manifest exactly what you want.